is happening, people? It is Brian Alsruhe, NEVERsate.com, and for today's video, I want to talk to you guys about how you can use back to increase your bench press. Before we get into that, just real briefly, I need to thank you guys so much. There were so many of you who took advantage of the Black Friday deals for either buying a program or a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or whatever the case would be, guys. It was so overwhelming and awesome, and so much of my income comes from the program, so a big income boost like that means so much here towards the end of the year, so I just need to say thank you. Also tacked onto that, I need to say thank you guys to all of you who have signed up for the seminars. First one sold out almost immediately. The second seminar on February 1st, for that Saturday. We still have 2 slots left now. If you did not watch one of my other videos where I discussed this, it is a very small, intimate seminar where it's only 5 athletes. The first hour and a half is basically me personal training you. We're gonna go over the squat, where I'm gonna tear apart your form, every single rep, every single set, every single thing you do. I'm gonna be looking at, critiquing, fixing, doing all that. After that, we move on to finishing pretty much a class just like you would if you were part of the NEVERsate team. So you get to kind of get the experience, and you'll definitely get pushed. After that, I'm gonna break down into dogs, kind of a mental talk, discussing things like flipping the switch for a PR, flipping the switch during competition, flipping the switch during normal life. Getting into a lot of things I can't really or choose not to talk about a whole lot in the channel because it is so emotionally anchored and specific. So with those 5 people, I'm gonna get to talk to them about the mindset stuff that I personally do and how to apply that to their personal experience. After that, we're gonna go into some sort of Q&A where basically we sit down and break down whether you wanna talk about programming, diet, exercises, whatever you want to talk about at that stage. Even if you want to get into some personal stuff about my disease and how I got through it all and all those types of things, we will get into all of that. So if you do want to be part of that, make sure you email me at NEVERsate@gmail.com. The price for that is $450. So if that is in a price point for you and you are interested, hit me up. And I guess now I'm going to get back to what I'm actually supposed to be talking about, which is how to use your back to add pounds to your bench press. Now, before we even get into the technical stuff, I'm gonna give you guys a bunch of cues and drills and stuff that you can use to start implementing this into your training. But before we even get into that, realize that adding mass and thickness and strength to your back is automatically going to make your bench press goes up. If you look at every single great bench presser in the world, guys who are world champions at this, every single one of them talks about how big of a game changer the barbell row was to their training. And the reason why is because the bigger and thicker and more powerful and stable your back is, the more powerful platform that you have to push, just like a house. If you build it with a bad foundation, that's no bueno. You need to have a good foundation. And for the bench press, when you're trying to generate force, your back is absolutely going to be that foundation. So bigger, stronger typically means more stable, better, good. Now the reason why having a strong, stable back is so important in the bench press is because it affects your setup. Now your setup is whether you make this or you don't make this. Consider it on a squat. If you were on some uneven land or you were on like a waterbed, same exact thing's happening here. If your back is strong and stable and locked in, it's like pressing from a normal floor, a normal hard, flat surface. However, if you're rolling all over the place and you are not locked in, and as you move, your back moves around, then you're gonna have a lot more problems generating force because it's like doing it off a waterbed. Now, if you spend any time watching any of my other benching videos, links below, then you'll know that I go very in depth on setup stuff in other videos, so I'm not gonna do about it here. But one thing that I did want to address is in a lot of those videos, I talk about retracting your shoulder blades or pulling them back, and that's not really what I mean. It was just kind of an easy way to say it, but what I really meant to say is pull your shoulder blades back and down. You should not be pulling them straight back so that you're kind of in a shrugged up position laying down on the bench. That's not gonna help you bench any more weight. Instead, I want you to think about like when you are in the setup for a deadlift and you're trying to get your shoulders down and back, almost like a reverse shrug, like a depression of your shoulder blades. That is exactly how I want you on the bench press to be as stable as possible. Now, you'll see people achieve this in a number of different ways, and I would just encourage that you try different things and see what works for you, but do not attempt to just mimic what someone else is doing because you like their YouTube channel or they're a world champion. Definitely figure out what works best for you, and don't always just try to mimic someone because they have big lifts. Now that you've spent all that time on your setup to make sure that you are stable and just as tight as you possibly can, the absolute worst thing that you can possibly do is have a bench where the J-cups are sitting up too high so that you literally just unrack your shoulders and undo everything that you just spent time setting up. And a second really horrible thing that I see people do all the time is that they try to unrack the bar while they're trying to lock it out when they're just trying to get the bar out of the rack. Instead, I'd probably argue that you'd be better off locking that bar out first, and then you literally want to pull this bar out or row the bar out. You need to think about this motion being very similar to a straight arm lat pull down, where your arms are locked out straight, but your lats are doing the main moving of the motion. Now, of course, you gotta be very careful here and not drop it out too far, or else you will lose control of it and it will like drop and shatter your pelvis or other good happy things. But if you do row the bar out or pull the bar out of the rack, like I just suggested, then you're gonna have a lot easier way finding that balance point that is gonna be more conducive to you actually starting the bar out in a good pressing position. Now, of course, this is much easier to achieve if you have someone handing the bar out to you. However, I know many of you work out alone and that really isn't an option. So an easy way to get the bar out yourself is roll that bar out to the front of the J cup so you don't have to do extra work than you would otherwise. Line up your eyes directly underneath that bar and then get your normal setup. Get your back tight as possible, get whatever arch you want to use. From there, all then what you do is shoot your hips up in the air like you're trying to imitate yourself doing a decline bench press. From there, you should be able to lock the bar out and then row it or pull the bar out like a straight arm lat pull down. And then if you lower your hips right back down, you put your butt exactly back where it was when your setup was correct, the bar should move out and be clear of the rack and you should be good to go on the bench. However you end up getting that bar out of the rack and you find that balance point, now it is time for the descent. Now, before we even get into this, I'm just telling you guys what I personally do. I'm not saying this will work for you or it won't work for you. I'm saying give it a try. If it works, keep it. If it doesn't, discard it, okay? But when I'm in this top position and I'm getting ready to bench, what I'm actually doing with my hands is squeezing as hard as I possibly can, literally trying to leave fingerprints inside that bar, and I'm trying to bend it upward like it is a horseshoe. That's gonna also help lock my lats in before I start moving this bar. Once I'm good and locked in, it is time to descent, and this is a massive mistake that I see a lot of people make because they act like it is a passive motion, like gravity's just gonna take care of it, and they're just gonna let it fall to their chest as quickly or as slowly as their little will wants it to happen. However, what I would rather see you do is actually use your back actively to row that bar down to your chest. This is gonna put you in a much more powerful position because your elbows are gonna stay tucked and your entire body is just more compact. So much in fact that if you do it correctly, your triceps should actually kind of lay on top of your lats and act almost as a spring that gets compressed and then rebounds off again. But that also might go back to the mass on the back situation. Now there are a couple things I do with my hands to make sure that my back stays activated the entire descent and really for the entire press. Now again, this works for me. I'm not saying it's gonna work for you. You can give this a try with dumbbells, you can give this a try with a normal straight barbell, or you can absolutely give this a try with a Swiss bar. I think that's probably going to be your best bet because you're gonna get kind of a more neutral grip position, which you're gonna be able to feel your lats a little bit easier than you would on a straight barbell. Anyway, the idea here is that I go from bending that bar like a horseshoe, and as I start to descend, the very first thing that I start thinking about is externally rotating my wrist, almost like I'm trying to break that bar in half, and that is what is lowering the bar towards me. Now, once that bar comes down and touches my chest, the initial press off, I'm still pretty much externally rotating my hands. However, once it gets about an inch or two past that kind of dead zone, I start internally rotating my hands. I start supermaning the bar. Now what this is actually doing is flaring your elbows out and adding more muscle groups to the press so you have horsepower back in it. It's completely a normal thing, except when you're doing it with your hands, you just have more active control and you'll actually be able to get more power out of your press if you can get that mind muscle connection kind of linked up. Maybe, I don't know. But the final thing to consider about this is when you think about when you actually really grind out a press and it is a full-blown fight that pretty much should have packed a lunch to get through, when you're pressing and you start internally rotating, your whole body will start to suck around the press, right? Your shoulders will start to roll forward, everything, but you can hardly ever lock out a bar like that. In order to finish it, you need to start externally rotating your hands again to bring your shoulders back, so definitely keep an eye out for that as you're doing this drill. You want to externally rotate on the way down, internally rotate as you come off the chest just a little bit to get your elbows flaring, and then I try to finish the press again with an extra rotation to kind of get my triceps locking out and really engaged towards the end of the press. It's a lot to think about. All right guys, so that's pretty much all that I have for you today. It is starting to rain a little bit harder. I hope the audio turns out okay on this. We do have a tin roof, so when it rains, sometimes the audio gets very garbled. So hopefully it's okay. Hopefully this taught you guys something, or if you guys already knew all this, hopefully it reminded you of it. If you guys like it, give it a try. If you don't, throw it out. It really doesn't matter to me. If you guys did want to get involved in that seminar, make sure you email me at NEVERsate@gmail.com, like now. Same thing in programs. Other than that, I will catch up with you guys later in the week. Until I do, go out to something amazing, realize, keep working hard, people, be nice to each other. I'll see you then. I can't do it. I can't do it without you.